Hi there all, Russ Douglas 222 here again from the somewhat different surroundings of our lounge. Reason being, thanks to the generosity of Claire and her team at Rothery Wholesalers, thanks again guys, I have a Hill compressor, EC3000 to review. I'm having to sit down for a minute because I've done a whole bunch of prep. I've got an extension cord. I've set up a standard RCD on my extension. Test, that trips it. Resets it, so that's live. So I've been through the notes. I'll create a Flickr album to accompany this review. I'll write an article to accompany this as well. I'll put a link to that down below, and I'll put a full manual here inside, plus the press release and the compressor quick start guide. I'm just about to crawl around a bit because the compressor's on the floor. We don't really have a traditional kitchen table, and unless it was built like granite, even if we did, I wouldn't put the Hills pump on it because obviously vibration is likely. So it's on our carpet. You'll see it very shortly because I'm going to turn the camera around and start recording. It does say on the manual it will fill up to 7 litres, and my main air tank is 7 litres, but it also says don't fill anything over 4 litres unless you're qualified. So I won't fill my 7 litre tank today. Plus, Bry kind of lent me his 3 litre dive bottle, but it's outside certification. So I've got octopus testing within Stonehaven, not that far away. When I've had Bry's 3 litre tank recertified, I'll fill that. I do have 3 tanks to fill. The Reximex Mito-S PCP pistol, which I recently reviewed for Airgun World, and I've already done a YouTube video review of it. Oh, and a tip from one of my viewers, by the way, who read the magazine review and emailed me. He said if you loosen a couple of the shroud grub screws near the foresight, the 1/2-inch UNF adapter for the moderator doesn't stick so much. I'll video the compressor in use. We'll be filling the Mito-S from 100 bar up to its 200 bar fill pressure. FX Maverick compact 177 FAC. I fired off a bunch of shots, dropped that 300cc carbon fibre bottle to 100 bar, ready to fill it back to 220. The maximum fill pressure marked on the FX rifles, like mine, is 250 bar, but advice from Sportsman Gun Centre tech guys is don't fill FX rifles over 220, 230 max, and that's to preserve the regulator integrity, basically prolong the regulator life. And I've got the 300 bar, 1.1 litre best fittings weekender. So I've just bled a bit of air out and I've dropped that down to 100 bar. I'll be filling them all, the first to up by 100 bar, the second by 120 bar, and lastly the buddy bottle, I'll take it from 100 bar all the way to 300 bar. Obviously the Hills pump is just air cooled. There's no fancy water cooling system as there is with certain other blue compressors that you might know. I've opened the window just to cool the room down, so ambient temperature's cooler, and hopefully the compressor won't get too warm too quickly. When you read the full instructions, it's fully automatic. When you switch it on, you confirm that compressor lubricant, which is sort of a red color, and the silicone lubricant, which is clear. You confirm that you've filled them up to the required levels, which I'm just about to do. You then set your desired pressure. When you've hooked a cylinder or your gun up, the Hills pump will recognize the existing pressure. Basically, you hit go, it'll work, it'll then cut out anytime it gets too warm, and then it'll automatically restart, and then it'll beep and flash up a message when it's done. Right, let's go and fill up these lubricant levels and get started. Now I'm just going to snip the wire holding the power cable in a loop, connect it to my extension, and then I'll top up first the crankcase oil and then the silicone oil. I originally intended, just to save hassle, I was going to leave the protective foam coverings on the rather cool Swiss tubular frame. I had to snip one of them anyway to free up the power cable, so I've removed them all, and that is one neat unit. That really is very, very smart kit. I mean, it's a little bit more expensive than some of the basic compressors out there. I would say this is top of the range British sports car compared to many pumps out there, but I'm about to use it and I'll be recording the sound levels. This is one very nice piece of kit. Interestingly, the oil level in the instructions for the crankcase oil is remove red cap, unscrew it anti-clockwise. You follow the instructions, you fill red oil level from the red bottle till it reaches the dot, leave it to settle and top up as necessary until it's stable at the red dot. But the red cap, that's not how the red cap looks on the pump itself. Not exactly anyway. There's the red cap on the crankcase. There's the red dot you fill the oil up to. My faithful pliers on my Swiss Army knife loosened the crankcase oil filler cap, so that's okay, and I'll just fill it up to the dot. And although it means a little bit of air will be wasted, to connect to the QD on the Hill pump hose, I'm going to use a best fittings male-to-male double connector and then connect up my micro bore hose to fill first the Mito-S, then the FX Maverick via its male connector, and then directly I'll just connect the Hill pump to the best fittings weekender bottle via the fill connector. I've got the crank oil up to the red mark. That took a long time because it slowly trickles through and appears, and then you squeegee more. About 2/3 of squeegee bottle that's supplied crank oil have gone in. It's up to the red mark now. The silicone oil was very easy to put in. That squeegeed in freely straight away. So I'm just going to run through the checklist, start it working. I'm also going to use the sound recorder ambience, about 40 decibels as usual, as it was at the range when I last used this. That was when the Mito-S was about 94 decibels unmoderated. And with the Hug-It Mini Magna on, it was just ambient, so 40, 41 decibels. But I'm going to measure how loud the Hill pump is as it's topping these various different sizes of cylinders. I'm going to record how long it takes each time. Just so you can see my sound meter, ambience 41.5, goes up to 50 when I'm talking, although it's not a constant measurement. So I'll pop the Hill's pump back on. So press to confirm lubricant OK. You select the pressure unit, bar or PSI, you rotate the dial to the desired pressure and press the button again to select. My hand's getting cold leaning against the Hill pump here, so this air cooling is definitely working. Still 60 decibels and this is right beside it. Don't worry, I'm not going to play the whole thing with the full volume. So the Hill pump starts by pressurizing the hose, and then when it reaches the same pressure as the pistol reservoir, then the pressure starts to rise in bar in the bottom left hand corner of the screen. This is filling a 50cc cylinder from around 50 bar up to 200 bar. Which works out 7.5 litres of air being compressed into the Mito cylinder, not counting lost air in the hose. This was the very first time I used the Hill compressor, and it quite quickly dropped from 200 bar to about 185. Pistol has just been filled up with air, but that air is warm from the workings of the compressor. Pressure is dropping at the moment. So I'm leaving it for a minute to cool down, and then I'll top it back up to 200. And just checks the Mito-S, and it is actually showing just over 200 bars. I just cancel that and I'm not going to bother doing another fill. I've got the FX Maverick Compact, and its bottle is currently showing exactly 100 bar. So I want 220. So I've sped up the video footage here, obviously, to avoid you getting bored, and please note that the volume you can see on the sound meter, you can also see from this superimposed photo just a few feet away. I was sitting about 7 or 8 feet away, and the volume level was 40 odd decibels, not much more than ambient. Brilliant. Less than 2 minutes 20 seconds to 220 bar. Fill complete. Let's have a look at the Maverick. Maverick bottle is showing about 210 bar. The bottle is clearly cooled a tiny amount, but I'm not too bothered about that. So to top up the 1.1 litre Weekender bottle, I have removed the 1 metre microbore hose, because no point wasting extra hose space, hose volume rather. So I'm connecting up the best fittings decanting connector, which is this fella, and I'll show you that close up. So that's the decanter, and I'm going to connect that directly. So that's connected directly in line, and so on the bottle, making sure the bleed hose is closed, make sure the bleed hose over here on the compressor is closed. Open the bottle valve, and that's gone, that gauge has gone to about 110 bar. So over to the compressor. Ambient sound is 41 decibels. Okay, so bottle is on 110 bar and bleed valve is closed, but the main valve is open. Hill pump is set to 300. Right, so that was done. I didn't stop it, but it was done at 1348 at 300 bar. Now you gently undo the release valve to depressurize everything, and that also expels any moisture that the pump retained at the same time. Small amount of moisture spurted out onto this piece of kitchen roll. So to speed things up, I'll cut out the bit where I drained the crankcase lube oil and the silicone lube oil, packed the whole thing up, took it down to the British Shoot and Show, and John Rothery said, we don't need it right back right away, so you can keep it a bit longer if you like. Aha! This conveniently coincided with Bry's 3 litre tank having been tested and returned from Scott at Octopus. Nice one. So I then had a 3 litre tank to fill, but Bry was like, hang on, I've worked with compressors, I've seen how much moisture they can trap, and it's not good for guns or air bottles for guns. How good is the Hill pump at removing the moisture? I hadn't really thought in detail about this at this point, but did some investigations, and here we go. So, as part of wanting to do a really thorough review of this Hill pump, I thought about moisture removal from the compressed air. Now, although the Hill compressor has a built-in condenser, when you depressurize at the end of each compressing cycle, there's a surprising amount of moisture sort of spurts out to the bottom of that vessel. I thought I could do a little bit more of a scientific test to make sure that no significant amount of moisture gets through. So we have a moisture filter from Amazon, scales, pellet scales that measure to 0.001 grams to measure the weight of the filters before and after, pen to mark the filters, and spanner and tape to help get the end caps off the filter body. Hopefully the pliers won't be required, but we'll see. So we have a pack of 20 replacement filters and umpteen O-rings. We have an instruction leaflet. Make sure there is no air pressure before opening. Every 5 litre air charging needs to change the filter. The rest, dry desiccants, depends on customer use. Use a hard stick to open the cap with male Forster connected. You see here, I was going to use a tip of an Allen key, so that's the same thing I was already thinking of. Take the filter out with tweezers and change for a new one. So air comes in via the male Forster connector, out at the female. Application, make sure the caps and filling probes are well tightened on both ends of the filter. Male quick disconnect is for air in, female quick disconnect is for air out. So we have a protective bubble wrapped body, Air Mega, male Forster, and it says 42 MPa, which is 4,200 psi, and we've got the female Forster at this end, and as you can see, hopefully here, we have a short stubby hole, actually at both ends, for removing the end caps. Oh, before I disconnect it and I'll weigh it. Grams, 328. So I can see one of the O-rings straight away. That's a reassuring length of thread there. Desiccant filter. So, oh, and I don't know if you can see that. There are more filters inside the body. And the body of this fella is 2 millimeters. I've numbered this one. I had assumed that the body of the thing would be thicker and that within this tube would be maybe 3 or 4 of these filters end to end. But the thickness is in the threaded end of the end cap. The body is just 2 millimeters thick, and there'll be presumably a long thread at this end as well. So we'll see how it goes, but I want to remove this with tweezers because it's a desiccant silica gel type filter, and I'll weigh it and weigh it again after the compressor's been used. I am surprised that it says to change the filter after every 5 litres, but we'll see how it goes. Obviously, I'm also aware that the longer this is exposed, it might be absorbing moisture from the ambient air right at this moment. So, grams, and the filter weighs 2.996 grams. Get this straight. That's closed up. The only slight hiccup of connecting the male Forster connector end of the Air Mega inline filter, which is this end, is that it was a little bit of a stiff fitting and it wouldn't go into the female Forster fitting of the compressor. But as you can see, I added my 1 meter microbore hose. It was still tight, but that would fit onto the hill pump, and the female end fitted over the male Mega connector. So I noted with the inline filter that this main connection here started leaking as soon as the pressure increased, and then when the recipient bottle reached 200 bar, where this brass connection screws into the other end, it started to sort of slowly hiss slightly. So I've now tightened that up as well. I've just had to tighten this male Forster connector, and I did that by popping a short Allen key into the keyway, gripping it gently but firmly with the mull grips, and twisting with a 4-inch spanner, and I think I've got it very tight, but it must have rotated over half a turn since I started. That's not exactly ideal, so Amazon will be getting feedback on that. After this, Bri was happy for me to fill his 3-litre bottle. That didn't take much longer than topping up the Weekender, because in the case of the 3-litre bottle, it started at 200 bar and I took it to 300 bar. Open the main valve on it and start. So I'll now close the bottle valve and open the hill pump bleed valve and see how much moisture comes out. That's the last of the pressure coming out. Funny, the pump says depressurised, but there's still a fair bit of air coming out. Okay, so I'm going to put a sticker on this to indicate the airflow direction, and in a second I'm going to weigh the removable filter to see how much moisture and oil it's accumulated. But having paused the fill twice, the first time I depressurized everything and tightened up this stainless steel nut where it goes into the end cap, and then a second time when it reached 200 bar, there was a faint hiss here from this brass fitting where this enters the exit end cap. Having done that, I then depressurized the whole system and again tightened this one, and after that there was no problem at all, no leaks whatsoever. Having filled the 1.1 litre 300 bar Weekender bottle in 12 minutes 56, this inline filter got quite cold, so the test is now taking this end cap off, removing the filter with the tweezers and weighing it on the scales. There we go. I thought I was going to have to put a latex sleeve on here to get some purchase, like a large elastic band, but nope. I just took a wee grip to undo it. This is live. I've not done this beforehand and edited it or anything. So we'll see the colour of the filter, the state of the filter, and what it weighs. Okay. Doesn't seem to be any outrageous discoloration. Turn it around so you can see the number. Number 1. And 3.007 grams. So that suggests that during the fill process, this filter has captured 0.007 of a gram of moisture, be that water or oil or a bit of both. And there are, as you saw earlier, there are other filters at the bottom, but the air comes through this one first, the replaceable desiccant filter, because the rest of the inline filter, roughly this volume, is chock full to the internal diameter, which, let me just measure that for you, which is roughly 28 mil. There's a fair volume of other absorbent materials in there. Double check this. It's already reduced down to 0.004, so there's so little moisture in there. What's in there, some of it is already evaporating. Out of interest, I'm just going to see how much 0.007 of a gram. And that's a small water droplet. Oh, and by the way, when it comes to draining everything out, you have to drain both the crankcase oil and the silicone oil before you can move it. But in both cases, that one has got a Perspex hex nut with a washer. So I've just removed the crankcase oil plug and drained out most of the crankcase oil. I was wondering whether I should put it back in the bottle for reuse, but I can see some discoloration, as you can see there, so it's clearly not meant for it to be reused. What I didn't yet suss out is exactly how to open the stopper at the bottom of the silicone oil bottle. And after a moment of clarity, I saw these ribs, so of course you unscrew the silicone oil bottle so I can empty it that way.